making these decisions without ever sitting down and having conversations with the women that they affect. And that goes across the board. I had a good girlfriend, bless her soul, who was forced to have an abortion. I can say to you today, regardless of what you think about abortion, whether it's a woman's right or a baby's right to life, it was one of the most difficult decisions she has ever had to make. So for anyone to sit up here and say that women are being cavalier about abortions and blah, 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 you have no idea what you're talking about. And I use that because it's that same mentality of dismissing a woman's feelings, dismissing a woman's experience that travels over into the workplace and becomes minimized when I brush up against a woman and, oh, sorry. Please don't brush up against me. Oh, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal.
Why are you so
to
offended?
You, sir. Right.
Calm down.
It's that when I sit back and I look at all of this, it's all driven from that same mentality. It's just that some people are making the laws that are oppressing women. Some people are violently raping, but some people are simply harassing. But it all comes from that same mentality of I'm a man, I can do what I want, and there's nothing you can do about it.
So just to share something from my personal experience, I had a job in college where I worked at a restaurant, pretty well-known restaurant in southern Louisiana. I worked as a hostess in the restaurant. And in Louisiana, I don't know if I think this is still true in a lot of places, but for sure at that point in time, chronologically in history and in that space, there was a very divided racially workforce. It was very racially divided. There was
the front of the house, but that kind of still exists, especially in restaurants. Right? Yeah, there are definitely back of the house and front of the house workers. Yeah, it's just the back of the house workers today, especially in New York, are most of the people that your current president want to send back home. So I don't really know.
We won't get into that, right?
Yeah, right. That's a different. That's another show.
That's a whole different show. But there was a big split, right? Front of the house was predominantly white, and by predominantly I mean I could think of 2 black servers that in the entire restaurant. All of the managers and assistant managers and the bartenders were also white. The back of the house was black and predominantly black male. I was a black hostess, and it was such a notable hiring that every time someone would come on shift when I first got hired, every time somebody from the back of the house, bus boys included, would come on shift, they would be like, "What you doing up here?" And I'm like, "I'm a hostess." What? It was a big deal. So then let's add the layer, because I think this is the other important part of the conversation, is that this conversation around hashtag Me Too, hashtag Time's Up, around sexual harassment, sexual assault, it has to be an intersectional conversation. And that means we have to think about the multiple influences and converging influences of social class, of race and ethnicity, on level of ability, on sexual orientation, on gender identity, beyond just thinking about this being a men-women issue or just being a kind of cisgendered heterosexual white woman, cisgendered heterosexual white man issue. So I'm working as a hostess. I would have to go to the back to check on, check on orders, or go to the back and clock in or clock out, or just whatever. Every time I had to walk from the front to the back, I had to hear catcalls. I had to hear from the guys in the back of the house of how I was looking good today, how my hair looked, why I don't ever want to spend time back there and talk to them. Oh, did I think I was better than them? Oh, I looked cute that day. Oh, they like it when I wear that skirt. It was ongoing. And so it started to feel like every time I had to walk back there, there's that little thin piece of space between like the kitchen and the separation area to the restaurant. I would feel like I was walking the gauntlet. It was so anxiety provoking and so uncomfortable for me. And I'm also already feeling isolated, because not only were the people that worked in the restaurant used to the hostesses being white, So were the customers. And so I had to deal with a lot of racist interactions from the customers, a lot of shock and surprise from the customers when they would see me as the hostess. And so I was really, I struggled. Now I remind you, I'm a college student, right? So the money that I'm making is not a lot of money, but it's money, all the money that I need. And I really struggled. I struggled around, do I just keep silent about this? Do I ignore my anxiety? Do I ignore my discomfort? This doesn't feel right. Do I rat out these brothers to this white manager, or do I keep it to myself? And so I tried at one point to address the kitchen manager, or the head chef, who was Black. And I tried to say, listen, every time I come back here, I have to hear stuff from y'all. I really need you all to keep, can you check your boys? Because I don't like it. I don't appreciate it at all. And he dismissed me summarily, sucked his teeth, rolled his eyes. He was like, oh, that's just because you're arrogant. You think you're better than us. They just trying to give you a compliment. So I thought, okay, well, that didn't work. All right, let me see. Maybe it's not as bad as I think it is, right? And it continues to escalate and continues to become more and more pervasive. And so finally I said something. I said something to the female manager, and she said something. She was like, oh, I didn't know that was happening. And she tried to be dismissive and, well, how long has this been happening? And is it really that bad? And, I don't think they really mean anything by it. And I had to reassert myself with her. And I said, I first tried to deal with this with them directly, and it didn't get me anywhere. But I'm telling you that I'm uncomfortable and I have rights and protections as an employee, and I'm asking you to do something about it. And eventually she did. She was a non-confrontational manager. So I think she, probably said something again to the chef to ask him to basically do what I'd asked him to do. And it quieted down. But what it also did is it separated me from all the other Black people that worked there. So I lost out on community in that context, right? As a Black person in this environment that was segregated and full of lots of racial tensions because of my gender. And I made a choice to be assertive and to stand up for myself in that context, after a lot of second guessing myself as well. So I share that example to say the risk was still high for me, and it still felt uncomfortable for me. At the same time, I was a college student. That income wasn't incumbent upon me being able to finish college. I had family support I'm very grateful for. Shout out to my mother and to my cousins for helping pay for college and for my books and everything.
Shout out
to them.
Shout out.
Right. And also as a hostess, I was earning a minimum wage. It was minimum wage, but I wasn't contingent upon.
Shout out to minimum wage.
Shout out. No, nobody's shouting out.
Oh,
to minimum
we're not
wage.
doing
Shout
that.
out to a livable wage. No, shout out to a livable wage. And what I had there was not a livable wage.
Shout out to the fact that you were in the front of the house and you had tips.
I was a groundbreaker.
Shout out to that.
I was a pioneer.
Shout out to your Rosa Parks in Louisiana restaurant behind. Shout out to that. But let me ask you this real question.
Ask me.
I'm saying, no, is it their fault that you was banging and they just wanted to talk about it and let you know, son? I'm saying.
Don't do that. You see what I'm saying? You're trying to get me caught up on this professional podcast.
Wait a minute. I just 1 second want to drive it out of you. I want to drive that, first of all, out of you. It's that story that you just shared. I had to mute my microphone because some of the things that I was saying over here would have made this episode NSFW. So but to the point I was saying earlier about men having the power to take the responsibility and being capable of making the change but choosing not to, either actively or passively, it's that kind of story that I have heard from family and friends my entire life. And it becomes even more complicated when it becomes intersectional, because in some cultures, if you go against that culture, you are ostracized. You are, quote, wannabe white. You
have a lot to
lose. Right.
A lot to lose. And
so
the other reason why I share my story, to your point, is not my story is not special.
No.
It should be.
It's not that it's
but
not
it's not
special. Right. It's not that it's not special insofar as this is something that affected you. It's so commonplace.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what do we do? Right? That has to be the next part of the conversation. We didn't even get to, okay, do you have it? Can you play that little clip?
I will use my manly power to allow you to hear this little clip of this amazing black woman. Yes, let's get into the Oprah clips.
Thank you,
which one would you like, the first one or the second one?
The first one.
Okay, it's playing right now.
So I want tonight to express gratitude to all the women who have endured years of abuse and assault because they, like my mother, had children to feed and bills to pay and dreams to pursue.
And I think Oprah really, really hits the nail on the head with that one by saying that so many women like her mother had, bills to pay, dreams to pursue. And like you, in that situation that you were in, you had the support of your family, but you also wanted to make your own money. You wanted to be self-sufficient. Right. This was your evolution. This was you standing on your own 2 feet. This was your God-given right to do what you needed to do for you, and people were affecting that. And so in standing up for yourself, you had to make a choice. Do I go to work every single day, deal with anxiety, affect my own mental health so that I can still have community? And I just got to say tangentially, it's interesting that you use the word community in reference to people who were harassing you.
Because it's intersectional.
Right.
Because for me, as the only Black person at the front of the house, they were my community to be able to to help me feel not isolated and completely alone in that environment. And I really struggled around that piece of, man, now I'm going to really be by myself.
Right.
In this whole space. Yeah.
Right. And it's interesting. One of my things, bless her soul, love her, my grandmother said, back when I think I was in my teenage years, I was going to a private school and was coming home in a uniform in Smallbany, New York. And kids would tease me, spit at me. Oh, you think you white. Oh, you this, you that, blah, 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 blah. And then, add the quote, the gay thing. Oh, you sucking on those white boy dick, blah, blah, blah. So that's the stuff I dealt with coming home.
I told you it was going to be explicit. You said it was going to be me. You went there yourself.
Well, you can say Dick. Maybe I'm talking about Richard. So shout out to you, Richard, whoever you happen to be. No, but going through all of that, I came home one day. I was talking with my grandmother about it, and my grandmother said to me, "Baby, you need to learn this. Just 'cause they're your kinfolk." No, excuse me, your skin folk don't mean they your kinfolk. You go ahead on and get your education, and you don't worry about anything else. If they want to take and tease you because you going into the library, you going to school, you know all that means? They're jealous because they don't have your opportunities. And that stuck with me. And one of the things I found, and I know you understand what I'm about to say, is when you're trying to work intersectionally and you're trying to take care of yourself, and I can only imagine what you go through as a professional woman, and you're trying to take care of yourself and assert your own, not even dominance, just your equality, just protection of your safe space. And you cross those lines, there will always be those